good morning again to everyone. We have successfully passed the night. We are here again for, after more than 20 hours of live streaming, welcoming Anica Kochhar. She is a principal architect. Hi, Anica, how are you?
Hi, Martina, how are you?
Fine, thank you. You're very welcome to this 24 hours conversation on Design International. So Anica is a principal architect and founder at Phenotype Architecture Studio, at Borderline Studio, and at Borderline Play. When we invited Anica, she chose to stick to the cluster 2 among the 3 clusters we proposed, that is exploring research field. And her statement is very interesting and up to date, but also very focused on the topic and on the field she's working on as an architect. The statement is the pandemic has caused a reverse urbanism while the internet continues to hyper-connect us. As designers and makers, and these are keywords I think, we have a unique opportunity to collaborate across boundaries from our unique roots. This course has given us a chance to understand the breakthrough made across fields that can come together to solve larger issues as designers. So, well, exploring research field, just to start, I think exploring research field means to act in search of understanding the surrounding and future scenarios. So how do you see the evolution of the context in which we are immersed in?
So hi, Martina. Thanks so much for having me here. It's 9:30 a.m. in New Delhi, and it's exciting that you've created this sort of opportunity for globally, designers to tune in and researchers, and already a platform for thinkers across different fields to collaborate. So yeah, getting right to the topic, I think. It's what has happened is, in my mind, there's 3 big things that have happened, and digitization, of course, recently, and how computers have aided algorithmic thinking, a deeper understanding of nature and science that came out of it, and then the internet, of course, which is created hyper connectivity within us all. So while this is also a curse, it's also a blessing, and as designers, it's an amazing tool because we can literally collaborate across boundaries in real time. And the third thing that has happened now, which is the pandemic, I think for us, it's very important to understand how it's affected us mentally, physically, financially, and also now how we can actually use these tools that were thrown at us earlier, but now we can actually sort of regroup and mindfully use them. So when we talk about the reverse urbanism, what I mean is that everyone's kind of run back to their roots. The pandemic has forced us to stay back, stay indoors, go to a safe place. And maybe now we have that space in our minds to be able to rethink about how we approach design, not just in a kind of mindless way, and not just in a way we have to get through our urban hectic lives, but also much more mindful about our natural surroundings, things that make us more in touch with ourselves internally, maybe dealing with our own mental state internally as well. So I think while we are sort of internalizing, we can also use the internet and digitalization in ways to create collaborative processes, and not only now physically, but also through the internet collaboratively across countries like India and Italy, and Tokyo, and why not talking to designers all over like what you're doing in Mexico. So I think a very key time right now for all of us.
Yeah, that's incredible. Those are 3 very big events. Well, some were driven by humans, some others didn't, like exactly the pandemic, but all of them led the whole world to somehow reset the way we work and the way we live, exactly as you were saying. Do you have in mind any example, or in your experience, what are the biggest changes in terms of concrete examples that these key events have triggered? Also in terms of what you experience every day in your daily routine and working.
So personally, for me, I can tell you a little bit in my journey over the last 2 years since lockdown began. Last year, we started, with design, especially architects. All our sites and construction sites are the first thing to get stopped. Also financially for our clients, you're not going to, you don't have the stability to sort of take on an expansion project. So as architects, I think it was a really big hit. I mean, the hospitality industry, travel industry, malls and restaurants and office spaces, all these sectors were kind of non-existent and are going through still a very big like question mark about what really is the future of this. Are those big hotels ever going to come back? I don't know. So there's a lot of it within architecture that directly sort of impacted us and continues to impact us. So last year during lockdown, and I think that architects cannot stop creating. It's an intrinsic part of our nature. So if we can't make a building, maybe we need to make a table. And if we can't make a table, maybe we'll make a glass to drink water out of. So that's what happened to me last year. And during the pandemic, I sort of started brainstorming and sketching household products, essentially the things that we need around us at home. And I also felt like during the pandemic, people had sort of realized the importance of their own home and their own sort of nest, and that feeling of belonging. And instead of just spending their money and time outside and running around, they were now forced to look inwards, into their homes. So I started a brand as an offshoot of a furniture studio that I started called Borderline Play now. And Play makes objects that spark joy. So I think that the need of the hour then, and since like Instagram shopping and Facebook shopping and everything is now the only way to shop essentially. So I figured it would be nice to be able to still communicate through design with a wide audience. And one thing that we all have in common is that we're all sort of locked up in our homes, and there's a fear and uncertainty. So I just wanted to create through products some kind of mindfulness in that moment. And all the products that we create, at the center of it, we want to spark joy, and we want to, for a moment, make you forget about the pandemic and in some sense become the designer in that product too. So these products are multifunctional, and they sort of engage with you as the end user, not just something that you come and you place in your home, but something that you kind of can play with. So for me personally, that's how I translated the pandemic as an opportunity to keep creating at another scale, and also to engage into the new kind of way of doing business. And that's how Borderline Play was born. And I think everywhere for designers now, they're getting a chance to, like I said, rethink their processes, rethink, okay, why am I doing what I'm doing? Is it meaningful? Is it giving me any kind of joy and contentment? So I think now some really important questions. There's finally been some time to ask ourselves and to give ourselves that kind of love that we also, deserve and probably needed. So that's the way I see it.
Great. It's obviously a matter of responding to the surrounding context. Do you feel like an architect, as well as a designer, you are somehow a privileged observer of what is surrounding us? What are your tools to catch and interpret what is happening around us?
Yeah.
And then make it into products. I mean, we are detecting something that is very unconcrete, abstract, that is happening around us while we are living, and we are translating those things into products. So what is your way of doing that?
So I feel as designers, I think a little bit of what we or how we become designers is because we are sensitive to subtle energies of objects, of shapes, of colors, of interactions around us. It's not, like you said, it's not the concrete things, but it's every single piece of anything that is around us that creates a certain vibration that we have to be aware of. And as architects, we sort of orchestrate all those things to come together and create a certain vibe, if you will. You know, like when you enter a space, it makes you feel a certain way. So I think as we sort of get more aware of this power and connect deeper with ourselves, and it is only more enriching for us to be able to then create products which are sort of really in line with what your internal state of mind is. If you want to create something that's calming and peaceful, you actually have the power to do that. So I think as designers, we're also very emotional creatures, and we create out of a place of feeling. It's not a work, it's not an Excel sheet with just numbers. It's there's a lot of emotion that goes into creation. So yes, the pandemic is an extremely emotional, highly charged kind of time in all of our lives. You know, everybody is dealing with so much loss. Everybody is forced to think about how fragile we actually are as creatures, how fragile our societies are, how fragile our cities are. And all these things that we took so seriously, they don't even exist anymore. But we are still very much there, right? So I think the sense of self has been, propped up, and we've kind of realized the power of the human mind, how we have to control it, how we have to keep it positive, and then how we can actually channel that energy. And I think somewhere, instead of just like robots operating in an urban scenario, we are now like thinking minds, and yeah, just more connected, and also to each other, because in times of grief, I think you realize the importance of each other, and having your families or having your friends and a support system around you. So all that, for us as designers, I think it's somewhere it should be channelized, and you can express yourself, and it's also a great way to keep yourself happy, and not fall into like a downward spiral, of negative emotions. So that is, I think, our way of keeping ourselves afloat, is to keep creating, keep reaching out, keep collaborating, and that's the way we're doing it.
Yeah, and well, collaboration. Well, the title, the macro title of this event is "No Designer is an Island." So we are not alone, and we are about and required to, of course, collaborate. How? But let's. You spark in my mind just one question that is more curiosity I have. How are you talked about the changes in the cities? How are Indian cities changing? Because we are very far away from there.
Yes. So in India, we have, a few really large cities. And I think in the past, the way our lives were, where humans just came to the city centers for livelihood, they had more access to technology, they had more access to, the basic amenities. But now, with the internet and with development in the last 20 years, you are totally capable of having a complete life outside these urban centers. And not only in India, I think we're seeing this everywhere. People are working from mountain tops and beach fronts, and pretty much anywhere they need to be, and it doesn't matter, because they're still very much connected, like how we are having this conversation right now, and it doesn't
Exactly.
matter where you
In
physically
Italy,
are.
we
Yes, yes.
have this new thing that is south working. That means
Okay.
that if you used to live in the north of Italy, that is usually, well, not less beautiful, but less sunny, and with no sea in the center of the northern Italy. You can now work from the south, from your second home, from your place of origin, staying with your family, staying in the south, go at the seaside in the late afternoon and have a breakfast in front of the sea, or
Exactly.
in a beautiful town on top of a mountain, for example. You just need an internet connection that is quite stable. That's fine.
Basically. And then it
Yeah,
makes you think, why was I ever doing that? Like, why was I staying in a tiny apartment far away and, like, doing all these
exactly.
extra things that I didn't need to do when I can actually relax and still get maybe more work done? I mean, I think human beings are such adaptive creatures that we find our way through anything. And even through the pandemic, I feel like my team and myself, we were pretty, productive. And it hasn't really stopped anyone from, if anything, it's maybe made us more calm because you're not running around spending your physical energy on things that you may not have really needed anyway. So yeah, the South working is great. I mean, I would love to be in a beach in South Italy right now. But yes, for now, I'll enjoy the mountains of India. In fact, next week, I'm going to go up there with my family and work from the mountains and, enjoy the summer over there. So I think this is
So,
also another great thing, that this reverse urbanization is, the human beings are again going back into like natural habitats. They're realizing less is more. You don't need so much. We don't need to consume so much all the time. And I think that's going to have a great impact on the way we think about cities, on the way we think of the idea of an office, on the way we think about the idea of a home. It's all kind of now getting reshuffled, and it's going to lead to a new way of architecture and urban design.
when going back for a second to the concept of collaboration, that is one of the main key concepts in your statement, in my opinion, you said when we were chit-chatting before this meeting that as architects and designers, we cannot be separate from material science, from biodiversity, natural studies, from researchers, scientific researchers, science, technology, sociologists. I mean, we are connected as designers with many different disciplines. How do you see the role of designers and of architects? I mean, in this process, in
So,
this large
Martina,
group.
yeah, I feel like as designers, we are responding to our current scenario, right? We are responding to our context, what is around us. Well, we should be. We cannot isolate ourselves and be in a bubble, and imagine. Of course, you can. I mean, as a designer, you can do anything. You're an artist as well. But I feel if your work has to really play a role within the society, we have to first understand what is going on around us. And what is happening around us is, in material science, there are huge breakthroughs. There is new material processes, there are new fabrication processes, thanks to the algorithmic thinking that's come in, due to computers and data processing. We can think about a whole new intelligent way of construction, which isn't that sort of top down, but a more bottom up approach, for example. So I feel like we cannot at all separate ourselves. And also sustainability, the earth is going through a crisis. We are not separate from that. And as designers, if we make conscious choices, then automatically the consumers, also make less of a footprint. So it's our responsibility, as anything that we put out there has to be a part of this larger network. And we have to understand, even psychologically, what's happening around us, environmentally, what's happening, financially. Like, does this make sense? Should this, this fruit bowl, what should it be made of? Do I really need it? How long does it need to survive on the planet? And all these questions it's very important to ask. So a few examples that I've seen where collaboration has, taken place so beautifully. Space 10 is a practice in Copenhagen, and it's backed by IKEA, where they just do research into the future of how we will live. And before the pandemic, I was actually there, and I had the great opportunity to go into their building and interact with their team. And what was very interesting is they showed us a kombucha making robot. So it's a robot that makes kombucha, and you can sort of pay with your credit card for it, and it gives it to you. And eventually, the machine would be rich enough to hire a human being to say, clean it. So it is a self-sustaining sort of ecology of its own, and it's sustainable. And so that is the kind of research that's going to be, I think, the future. And also, very important here is open source thinking. We have to be collaborative, and we have to come together with ideas. I cannot possibly answer sort of question just being an architect. But if I had a material scientist with me, if I had a great person from a business background with me, I could then, have a non-linear approach, and maybe some things that conservative thinking, could not give us answers to, together we can crack. So I think that's one major shift that we need to make, is to stop trying to become like these superstars in ourselves, but to try and understand that we are just players of a much larger thing here, and we're a part of, a much larger energy and momentum that's in play. So if we sort of collaborate, and now we can collaborate globally, then there's really nothing stopping us from, together creating something much more meaningful. So that's how I see it. And of course, like the MIT Media Lab, which everybody, wants, wishes they were a part of, how they sort of, I think, created this kind of platform where, designers, researchers, inventors from different fields were all invited to the table to just brainstorm on what is the city of the future, or, what is happening in the mental health all around us, and all those very important questions that we cannot isolate ourselves from, and really shouldn't.
Right. And well, of course, this thing of collaboration is not new. There are many examples of masters, designers, and architects that used to collaborate a lot between each other and to search for an harmonic equilibrium between arts and design practices, to work a lot in team as well. Do you see new collaborative practices as long as we have all these tools, all these new tools to make collaboration easy and to facilitate it? How do you see these practices evolving for the next generations?
I feel like earlier it was like the arts were one thing and science was another thing. And now I feel like that strongly has to merge, and it is merging. There cannot be art without science, and somewhere in science also there's a lot of art. So I think that's what's happening now, where that's going to be the future. The computer is going to be, of course, the main tool for everything. So the DNA that we are always going to be working with will be a combination of art and science. And I think for the future, whether either you're a coder, or you're going to be telling the coder what you want to achieve, but essentially those are the tools that everybody is going to, it's all going to be sort of from there. Also, another thing that's, I think, the pandemic has done is coming back to the idea of traditional craft. And instead of this kind of mass produced world that we were sort of so consumed in, where everybody has the same shirt and everyone is just wanting those same sneakers, and everyone wants that same Instagram photograph of their house, and this whole idea of mass produced, I think that is also shifting now. So that's very interesting, where I think technology can come in, not to just create a modular system, but a much more specific system for what's required in different spaces and different climates and different societies, and also a little bit of shift of, like, to celebrate our differences and not try to become all of us the same. So I think that's another exciting thing that's kind of happening now.
Yeah, and yeah, this theme of overproduction, of mass production, overconsumption as well is a thing that I care a lot about, as I'm into that for the fashion part that is, labeled as one of the most polluting industry in the world. But it's not just a matter of pollution, it's a matter also of social sustainability, of economic sustainability of an entire system that is an industry and gives a lot of work to a lot of people and families. So, of course, the most sustainable choice in the world would be to stop producing, but that's well, on one side, that's not possible because we're leaving a lot of people with no work. But on the other side, it's also it would be also a pity to stop creating. I mean, we're doing one of the best jobs in the world. We create things, objects or services, or also we modify, we intervene on the way people are living. So I think the paradigm should shift towards sustainability and creating, exactly as you were saying, new perspectives of consumption and of production, of designing as well. And that's our duty. Uh, how, how do you concretely work with your products, with your lines, with your three main projects in this direction?
So, how in my particular case, as an architect, for example, we recently constructed a home in Ladakh. Ladakh is a desert, about 16,000 feet high, very, very high. And we could not obviously use the same steel construction that we do in the cities because the climates are so harsh, and the building would not be able to survive the sort of the fluctuation in climate. So we literally built the building by making mud bricks from the soil. Our columns and beams were essentially the trees and the branches. And yet it has a very modern sort of way of navigating through the space. The only things that I sent from Delhi to the mountains up there in a big truck were the big glass windows, because over there the views are so stunning that essentially the home is just a machine for you to experience your surroundings. So while like technology allows us to simulate and create what those 3Ds are and what we need to do and calculate the weight, but finally we came back into like the local craftsmanship, and we created the building literally from the soil that it very much sits on. So I think that that kind of usage of the best use of technology, and yet a mindfulness in handicraft and what we're actually capable of, and not just wiping out all the centuries of wisdom that could be passed on to us. That's very important to balance and be aware of. Also, let's talk about Borderline Studio, which is a furniture and carpet company. So for that, again, the designs are extremely modern and edgy and almost futuristic, but yet we work with artisans. Everything is handmade, everything is handcrafted in India. It's not made in a factory in China. And so we, and it's fun, it's great because we're giving that the old techniques a fresh perspective and reimagining the same product in the future and tweaking it for what our lifestyles would need it to become, and sort of bringing it back. Yeah, and so that's how in my own practices I'm able to keep a balance of technology and the future as well as the past and craftsmanship. And I think this is an opportunity for everybody to just pause a minute and see if they can somehow, bring that mindfulness back into their work.
Yeah, right. I think we have just a minute left.
Yeah.
30 seconds. 30 seconds. It's really. Do you have one word or statement you want to say as an advice for young designers and researchers to find your own place in the world?
Yes, I think as young designers and researchers, I would say that firstly, don't put that pressure on yourself that you want to be a superstar or a star architect or a star designer. Your role is much more meaningful than that. Your role as a player to sort of spread some joy, to sort of really get that craftsmanship back, to create a sustainable environment together. So have that sort of collaborative nature, have that sort of open source sharing attitude. And that's what's really going to make your journey also more fun and more meaningful. And of course, be fearless in who you are, express yourself. There's nothing to, you don't have to solve all the problems in your first project. It's okay.
Right. Future is promising.
Yes.
So that's all. I thank you very much, Anica.
Thank
And
you,
I
Martina.